The year was 1971. Detroit was still reeling from the scars of the 1967 riot. In the early morning hours of June 14th, evil visited a small home on Hazelwood Street. It was a scene of unimaginable horror. This was the Hazelwood Massacre. 3 young women and 4 men were brutally murdered. Their bodies were found inside the home. The victims ranged in age from 19 to 30. What began as a joyous occasion transformed into an unspeakable tragedy. Inside the house, police discovered a gruesome scene. The victims were identified as Catherine Louise Winston, age 19, Narcissa Lee Tessie Brown, age 19, Catherine Betty Basser, age 22, Sharon Brown, age 20, Roman Del Burton, age 24, Carl Carrington Mounts Jr., age 27, Lloyd Taboo Tyler, 27, and Robert Gardner, who taken to Henry Ford Hospital where he died from his wounds 6 days later, on June 20th. Their futures were stolen on that horrific night. News of the massacre spread like wildfire. The community was in shock. Fear gripped the city. How could such a horrific act occur? The police launched a full-scale investigation. They interviewed neighbors, friends, and family. Witnesses recounted seeing a group of men fleeing the house shortly after gunshots rang out. This was not a random act of violence. This was personal. All 7 were shot in the head at close range. Cartridges were recovered from guns with 3 different calibers. Analysis of the cartridges identified the murder weapons as a .30 caliber carbine, a .32 caliber pistol, and a .45 caliber automatic. 3 of the women had their hands tied in front with rubber surgical tubing, and one of the women had her arms wrapped around another's waist. All of the bodies were found in the living room. 2 of the men appeared to have been sitting on the floor, and their heads fell into the fireplace after being shot. Another was leaning against the couch. 3 of the women were on the couch, and the 4th woman was near the couch. The 8th victim, Robert Gardner, was shot in the mouth, chest, and stomach. He fell approximately 10 feet, 3.0 m, from the front door. Police theorized that he answered the door and was shot as he backed away from the shooters. 3 other occupants of the apartment, 2 women and 1 man, escaped by breaking through the rear window of a sun porch and fleeing down an alley. They came to police headquarters afterwards. This became the Hazelwood Massacre. Forensic evidence pointed to multiple assailants. The brutality of the crime suggested a motive rooted in deep anger or revenge. A team of 20 detectives, led by Homicide Inspector James Bannon, was assigned to the investigation. In the days immediately following the shooting, police rejected the notion that the massacre was a robbery, as the perpetrators left both money and drugs untouched at the scene. Instead, police theorized that someone who had been sold fake heroin by Gardner returned for revenge, and that the other 7 victims were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The revenge theory was supported by the discovery in the apartment of a quantity of a substance that was initially thought to be heroin, but which proved to be milk sugar and quinine. They later began pursuing leads indicating that Gardner may have robbed other drug dealers. Despite their tireless efforts, the investigation stalled. Leads ran cold. Frustration mounted for the police and the grieving families. Justice seemed elusive. The case went cold, leaving a community scarred and searching for answers. Many believe the massacre was a direct result of the anger and frustration simmering beneath the surface of Detroit's streets. Others saw it as a sign of the times, a reflection of the violence plaguing the nation. The Hazelwood Massacre remains one of Detroit's most haunting unsolved crimes. The victims' families still yearn for answers, their grief a heavy burden. The tragedy serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of violence. Though decades have passed, the memory of that horrific night on Hazelwood Street continues to cast a long shadow. It stands as a solemn reminder of the work that remains to be done in the fight for justice, equality, and peace. The victims deserve justice, and their stories must be told so that we may learn from the past and strive for a brighter future.